I hate math. To this day, I really don't like math. I'm kind of embellishing a bit and kind of not, but part of the reason I chose my major in college is because it required the least amount of math I needed to take. Okay, that wasn't actually one of the reasons, but it was a huge plus. I think the reason why I hated math goes all the way back to second grade. We'd have these math competitions in class where we'd have to go up to the blackboard. Yes, I'm old enough to have had blackboards in school. And we'd go up to these blackboards to compete against another student by doing the same math problem. I'm usually all for competition, but when I was up at the blackboard, my mind would freeze. Second grade was also where I'd get lunch detention for not being able to finish my math homework in class prior to lunch. I'd routinely eat alone because I wasn't simply able to get the math work we had to do in class. As you can tell, the teacher was a real peach of a woman. Needless to say, this affected me not only my entire second grade, but followed all throughout my school career and beyond. To this day, I hate math and can feel all those feelings I had years ago when faced with a math problem that might be a little bit challenging. Math. It was my worst subject in school. History? Loved it. Government? Yes, please. English and writing? Those were classes I could excel in. But math? Nope. I wanted nothing to do with math. I hadn't really given my math issues much thought until about a week ago. And then, as I was reading a few mornings ago, God gave me a math problem. Yep, you heard that right. He straight up gave me a math problem to complete. But don't worry, it's a simple addition, subtraction, math equation. Check this out. It's found in John chapter 3, verse 30. And it says this: He must increase, but I must decrease. When it comes to mathematical equations, it's pretty simple. But in life application, it doesn't always equal easy. But it's exactly what needs to happen in each of our lives. And John knew this truth for his life as well as for our lives. You see, John chapter 3 records and talks about when Jesus came to Judea. Many people received him and were being baptized. John the Baptist's ministry was already established and doing really well. The Bible tells us that people kept coming. But now, people were going to Jesus rather than to John. Not only were people going to Jesus, but in verse 26, it tells us that all were going to Jesus. John's disciples had to have been like, what the heck? This isn't cool. To John's disciples, John was the guy. But John knew he wasn't the guy. You see, John's mission was to proclaim and point people to Jesus, who is the Christ, the actual guy. John realized that his ministry success he experienced, people coming to him to be baptized, was the result of God's blessing and not because of anything that he said or did to make it happen. John 3:27 says that a man can receive nothing unless it has been given to him from heaven. John describes himself as the best man at a wedding, in this case, the marriage of Jesus and his church, who understands that the groom is to be blessed and that the best man's joy flows from helping to bring the bride and the groom together on the day of the wedding. Then, John declared this kingdom principle: He must increase, but I must decrease. The reason for this statement comes from John's next statement in John chapter 3, verse 31, that says, He who comes from above is above all. The one who is of the earth belongs to the earth and speaks about earthly things. The one who comes from heaven is above all. You see, the reason that Jesus must be increased is because he is above all and has all authority. You see, this simple math equation takes our whole life to complete, and it means that we need to know where we stand in relation to Jesus. John knew where he stood. He knew that in order for Jesus to increase, he had to decrease. In order to gain more of Jesus, John knew that he had to give something up. You see, I think John gave up the hardest thing to give up: his ego. He was doing well in terms of ministry, in terms of an occupation, in terms of a calling. People were coming to him to be baptized, a lot of people. Then, when Jesus showed up, they all went to Jesus instead. But John knew where he stood in relation to Jesus, and he knew what he had to give up. And bigger than where John stood in relation to Jesus, John knew where Jesus stood in his own life. Can I ask you a question? What do you need to give up in order for Jesus to increase in your life? For some of us, it might be our ego, the desire to be known, so much so that it overshadows Jesus. We love our arguments so much more than we love our relationships. For others, it might be a secret relationship. And still, for others, it might be choosing that substance to cope in life or to ease some pain. So, what do you need to give up? Where does Jesus stand in your life? Secondly, John didn't misunderstand who Jesus was and is. As I look back over my life, I can look back and see how I misunderstood Jesus. Sometimes we miss Jesus because we simply misunderstand Jesus. As I look back on my second grade year, I couldn't understand math because my math teacher misunderstood what I needed. Make no mistake, Jesus doesn't misunderstand what you need, what I need, what we all need. And John didn't misunderstand who Jesus was and is. Check this out. John chapter 3, verses 16 and 17 says this: "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but may have eternal life." Verse 17 says, "Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him." I think a lot of us misunderstand who Jesus is. We think of all the fun we can't have if we follow God and his word. We think of all the things that go away if we give our lives to Jesus. And that's what I used to think when I was growing up. The churches we went to were boring. The people in the church were boring. It was freaking boring. But that's a misunderstanding of who Jesus is and what he came to give you and I. Not only did he love us so much that he came to give his life for us to save us, but John 10:10 tells us that Jesus came so that we could live life to the full. John 3:29 says, "For this reason," talking about Jesus increasing and John decreasing, "my joy," John's joy, "has been fulfilled." You see, when Jesus increases and we decrease, then and only then will we experience true and lifelong joy. The math equation of Jesus increases and I increase too doesn't equal lasting joy. We only get small intermittent glimpses of happiness that are connected to life's fleeting moments. It's only when Jesus increases and we decrease do we experience a true lifelong joy. So, where do you stand in relation to Jesus? Where does Jesus stand in your life? What do you need to give up so that Jesus can increase and you decrease? And is there or has there been anywhere that you have misunderstood Jesus? It's my prayer that I'm filled with more of what Jesus wants and desires in my life. And it's my prayer that you are filled with more of Jesus in your life as well.